Taylor, but it feels weird calling you Taylor, man. I feel like I need to call you like dude, like for good reason, right?
Hey, Larry, call me whatever you want.
Man, it's good to see you again. You and I, we met back in 2020, man, 2 years ago at Dad 2.0. And it was like literally a few weeks right before like the pandemic and the shutdowns hit. In fact, I remember, I remember being at Dad 2.0, and one of the sponsors there, I don't know if you remember or not, was like AstraZeneca, big pharma, because they are GlaxoSmithKline, I think, because they were talking about the meningitis vaccine and how important that was and all that. And I remember going to one of those speaker dinners. I can't remember if you were there or not. If you were on the opposite end of the table, but I was sitting right across from like the chief medical officer of that company. And I was like, and at that time there was rumblings of COVID and how it had just infiltrated the US. And I was like, hey, what's up with this COVID thing, man? Do you think it's like anything is even going to come of it? And I remember that chief medical officer, like taking a deep breath. He goes, I honestly think things are going to look quite a bit different over the next 6 months. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? He's like, well, I'm not going to speculate or really talk about it. He goes, but I think it's going to be different. And I'll never forget, obviously, meeting you. And that was right on the verge of the shutdown. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. But that's where you and I go back, my man.
Yeah. Yeah. Different. It's so weird to think about yourself before the pandemic because you just had no idea. I remember those videos that came out from France of like people talking about how different it was. And we're all like, what do they mean? What's going to happen?
Right.
What's going to happen? And for me, it was when I lost my intern. I had an intern. I was living in Los Angeles and I had an intern through this like film program that I attended 10 years before that. And when they sent all the interns home, I was like, wait, what? Why are they leaving? Why is college shutting down? I need my intern. What's going on? And then, obviously we don't have to talk about that.
No, yeah.
But it just is so weird to have your life just completely changed and like have the entire world have to figure out how to adjust, but then so quickly change back.
Yep.
Right. Because all of a sudden, no more talk. It just happened immediately. And all of a sudden everything was back to normal to the point where you went like, oh yeah, there was a pandemic. So weird.
It is weird, man. I saw this meme on social media that said, what are you going to do when 10 years from today, you lose weight and you fit back into those jeans from 2020 and you reach in and you pull out a mask? What are you going to think? And I'm like, oh man. Because you don't think of it like that. You're going to think of it like,
throw it away.
Right. That was
throw
terrible.
It away.
Well, man, it's so good to have you on Dad Edge. This, I feel like, man, this has been like a long time coming. You've got a brand new book that's coming out, and we're definitely going to get to that. I'm really excited about that. And, but I got to hear, I think everybody in the dad space knows who Dude Dad is, right? And I remember seeing some of your videos. My mother-in-law is a raving fan of yours as well. She keeps telling me, she's like, when are you going to get Dude Dad on? And I'm like, he's on the list. I swear he's coming on. But man, I got to hear because I heard you speak at Dad 2.0, like this start that you had with Dude Dad. I want you to share that story, my man, because it's incredible.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, the moral of the story with the talk I gave and the point that I really wanted to drive home sort of combats like what most people think. Like when you see someone with this viral video, you're like, oh my gosh, they blew up overnight. That's so crazy. Lucky, good for them. They were so lucky to have, come up with that funny video and they blew up and now they're an internet sensation and it had made a career out of it. And so my whole talk at Dad 2.0 was like kind of combating that thought that people have, and then, basically it was like, there was all these points in my life that were, what did I say? I called it like that here came, then I had my big break or whatever. I think that's what the phrase I used, but it was like, trying to think. First, I think it was when I got a contact at BuzzFeed, right? And they were looking for somebody to help make their parenting content. And I was like, maybe like, I don't know, 10 months into making Dude Dad. So I was making some pretty good dad content and stuff. And then I got this chance to work with BuzzFeed, and I had this meeting with this gal at BuzzFeed Parent, and she was like, yeah, we love your stuff. This is awesome for sure. Let's do some collabs. Let's get you in, and like, I left that meeting being like, oh my gosh, this is my big break. This is the turning point of everything. And then she never called and she never responded to anything. And I never heard from her. And to this day, I still don't know what happened, because the meeting went great. And then we left, and then nothing. The only thing I can think of, and this is me like putting a positive spin on it, is like, she respected what I did enough to know that I shouldn't give it to BuzzFeed and that I should do it on my own. That's what I hope. That's what I hope for her, because otherwise she just ghosted me. And for an adult to ghost someone seems like a pretty, like, what adult does that, but anyway, I'm trying to think what the other moments were, but basically it was just like, you remember one?
I do. Can I jog your memory on something?
Yeah, jog my memory.
Dude. So like, and I'm calling you dude. I've always been a fan of your stuff. And I've always found it so funny. And to be honest, man, the dad world needs that humor, because we take ourselves pretty damn seriously, right? As fathers. I mean, I've been in this space now for almost 10 years myself, been podcasting now for 7. And I've, been through, I've heard the minds, the hearts, and the stories of thousands of men, to this point. And we take ourselves really seriously. And I love the lighthearted spin that you add to your videos, that add just some color, some funny moments, some ways that we can even laugh at ourselves. But man, I want to bring you to this one point that I saw. Like, I wouldn't call him Dude Dad. I got to see like Taylor, and like in all of this incredible, like authentic self. And it was this moment that you described where you were thinking about not really going full throttle with Dude Dad.
Yeah. It's when I was about to quit.
Yeah. And your conversation you had with your wife, man.
Yeah. I'm actually, I just produced a video where I tell this whole story. But yeah, and we'll see if it happens. I literally get choked up almost every time I tell this story, because it was so impactful on my life. And so basically the story goes that I was 1 year into Dude Dad. I had made all these, I made a bunch of videos at that point, like 50 videos in the first year. And I was working as an apartment manager. So our rent was free, and I had a lot of free time. I just, would fix people's toilets and fill vacancies whenever they came up. But other than that, I could kind of work my own schedule. So it gave me the freedom to make these videos and to also continue to audition. Well, then a year into making Dude Dad, which also means that Theo is a year old, because Dude Dad is the same age as my firstborn son, Theo. The apartment, the owner of the apartment building decided to sell the apartment building, and the new owner came in and they brought all their own people. So day one, when they came in, literally, I think it was 2 or 3 people showed up on my door, and they were like, "Hi, we're from the new management company. You no longer have a job and you need to move out." And I was like, this was like the day escrow closed. And we've been trying to reach out to them for literally like escrow. It took like 3 months. We were reaching out to them constantly, being like, "Hey, what's going on here? Are we going to have a job? What's going on?" They wouldn't say anything. Right. And then they show up the day escrow closed to say, "You don't have a job and you need to move out." And I was like, "When?" And they were like, "Tomorrow." And I was like,
"Is that even legal?"
There's no way that's legal. I said some 4-letter words to him, because I was like, I have a wife and a 1-year-old in here. Like, and also I've been working in apartment management for 5 years. I know that you can't just kick someone out in a day. That's not how it works, especially not in Los Angeles. There's whatever. So we got our stay extended or whatever, but we were put into this tailspin where all of a sudden I didn't have a job. We didn't have a place to live. And like, I needed to find a new job. Heidi was working nonprofit, so she was making like nothing. And, you know, and then so she changed her job to get a little bit better paying nonprofit job. We moved across town. I started working set construction and we got a 1-year-old. And then we found out we were pregnant. With the second one.
Like a trifecta of stress going on right there.
There was just so much happening. So then we get settled in the new place. It's great, you know, and everything. But like now I'm working set construction to make ends meet. I'm still producing a Doodad video every single week. And at that time, you know, the only help I had was just from friends. I had like a Rolodex of friends that I would flip through it so that I would never overwhelm any one person because I couldn't pay them. So I would just go like, oh, Aaron hasn't helped in a while. Hey, Aaron, you want to help me with this video? And then like, oh, you know, Josh hasn't helped in a while. He can help with the next one, you know? And that's how I like made videos to begin with. But anyway, so I'm still doing like all of it by myself. I'm still trying to keep my schedule open for auditions. And I'm working, you know, set construction. And I have a pregnant wife and I have a 1-year-old. And it was too much. I couldn't do it anymore. And it was like, there was too much weight on my shoulders. And I kind of like broke down to Heidi one night and I was like, I can't do this. I can't handle it. I have to cut something out of my schedule. And in my head, that thing was Doodad because I spent a ton of time on it and I didn't make any money. And without even bringing that up, no hesitation, Heidi looked at me and she said, "You're not quitting Doodad." And which was crazy because, you know, like I said, it didn't bring us any money or anything, but she knew that there was something more to it. And she knew that I needed to keep pushing forward with that. But like, I don't know, I think just having somebody, you know, like, I think anybody can do anything, but having somebody, it's a whole lot easier when you have somebody in your corner that believes in you endlessly. And, you know, but like such a weight was lifted off my shoulders that day because I no longer felt guilt about spending so much time working on this thing because she wanted me to do it, you know, and she believed that I should do it. So she kind of like gave me permission that day. So even though like I was still crazy busy, like I could handle it because I knew that I wasn't like dragging her down, you know. But that's the story.
That is
so honestly, that was probably my big break.
Yeah.
What is that, you know, was that, if anything, because yeah.
You know what is so cool about that is that the power of having a good, strong woman in your life who believes in you. You know, you and I, and if I could just segue to a really, really quick story, you and I share a very similar moment with our wives. And I know, like, like when you told that story at Dad 2.0, I'm like, dude, not only have I felt that, not only do I feel that from him, but I've been there. And for me, it was 2012. So for me, at the time it was Good Dad Project. Now it's the Dad Edge. It has been the Dad Edge now for years, but at the time it was Good Dad Project. And at the time I only had 2 boys and I was working a full-time job. And I really, really wanted to start Good Dad Project because quite frankly, like my background and like me showing up as a dad, I was really challenged with it. I wanted so badly to do it well. I just couldn't figure it out. And I was like, okay, well, I couldn't really find many resources back then. So I was like, well, I'm just going to create one and I'm just going to be like this student learning along the way. And that's really what it was. And it was very therapeutic. And I'll never forget starting gooddadproject.com. And I sat across the table. It was me and my wife on one side. And I had a coach, and a lot of people know who he is, Sean Stevenson, who runs the Model Health Show. He's a good friend of mine. And at the time I just met him and I hired him to help me. I was going to hire him start this blog because I had no clue. I had no clue how to even build a website. He did. And I'll never forget, before we showed up to that meeting, my wife was like, how much do you think the proposal is going to be? And I was like, I don't know, maybe $1,000 or something like that. And so he slides the proposal. It's him and his wife on one side, me and my wife on the other. And the proposal was for 6 months, helped me launch the website. There was a whole lot of other things that were involved, but it was just over 12 grand.
Wow.
And 6 months of coaching. And I'm like, I literally didn't even have to think about it. I slid the proposal back and I was like, I think we're good. I was like, I don't think I'm going to do this. We don't have $12,000. And I thought my wife thought I would be crazy to say yes to that. And my wife put her hand on top of mine as I started to slide that proposal over. And she's like, stop. And I was like, what? She goes, stop. She goes, I know this is expensive. She goes, but this is important. And if you don't do this now, you never will. And if you don't do this now, it will never be created. I believe in you and I think you should do it. And I was like, I mean, it brought me to my knees. I was like, I can't, if she had not done that, that meeting would have lasted 7 minutes and I would have walked.
Yeah.
And so I get that, man. And I always tell my wife to this day, Dad Edge is here because of you, because you believed in me. Yeah. And you gave me permission. And it sounds like Heidi did the same thing for you.
1,000%, like it's funny, like, I mean, yeah, like she's the secret sauce, she really is. And like, I think I owe a lot of my success to her because I don't think I would have developed into the person I am without her, Like I look at like other relationships I've had in my life and none of them, had the special sauce that Heidi has, which is that unconditional support, and teamwork, like I had a girlfriend one time that got mad at me because she thought I was funnier than her. And I was like, why is that a thing?
Oh my God.
Like I've never even had the thought of whether I thought I was funnier than you. I think you're hilarious and I enjoy your company. It's not a competition, and there's just, there's not a competitive bone in Heidi's brain when it comes to that. There's actually no bones in her brain, strangely enough.
Oh my God, dude. That is hilarious. Yeah, you think you're funnier than me?
Yeah, I'm like, wait, what? Yeah. What are we talking about?
It's
Why
over.
What are you worried about? Like,
oh my God, man, that's crazy. Before we get into more dude dad stuff and marriage and kids and your book and all that, I'm very curious. I want you to share with the audience, what was your upbringing like? Like even the relationship with your own, siblings, your own father, your own mother. What was that like for you?
So I was raised in rural South Dakota. Have you ever been?
I actually have. Shocking.
Okay.
Yes.
East River.
So, oh my gosh, I literally did. At the time I was working in medical device sales and I was a manager and I was with a rep and we literally
went to Sanford.
We did go to Sanford. Yes. That was his biggest customer, but we literally did like this crazy, like travel day where we hit a little bit of North Dakota, a little bit of South Dakota. I think the other one was Nebraska and Iowa all in the same day. We all just sort of like, I was just like, I've never in my life been in a car where we went through 4 states in like 8 hours.
What a gorgeous drive.
It was pretty cool, but it was very desolate, right?
Yeah,
cool.
It is.
Cool.
Yeah. Right. No, there is a lot of beauty in that part of the country. And it's like, for me, every time I go home, there's just this sense of like, it's the silence. It's the, like, you go to South Dakota in the summer and go out in the country and just listen to the birds and look at the clouds. Like it is a different experience than what you normally, experience. It's pretty cool. But anyway, so I was raised in rural South Dakota. I had an older brother, 2 years older than me, that I did everything with, and then my sister came along 9 years after me. So we had a little sister that we got to play with, the last half of my life in South Dakota. But my dad worked, it still does, sells construction equipment, but he was like a traveling salesman. And I remember like so he was gone a couple nights a week. But I remember like the conversation, like he was like going to expand his territory, and he sat me and my brother down at the table with him and mom and like explained that like, hey, dad's going to start working more and being gone more, so that we can make more money and so that mom doesn't have to work, basically. So my mom was a stay-at-home mom and my dad was, gone a couple nights a week. But like different era, but he was still like an extremely invested father, in the sense that like, he was there when he needed to be there, like he came to every single one of our baseball games and things like that. Like there's very few games that he ever missed, which was crazy because like he'd have to like drive across the state to get to these games in these itty bitty little towns all over Eastern South Dakota. And somehow he'd find a way to like make it to him. And there's like the chapter in the book. I think it's the baseball chapter, when your baby is the size of a baseball, where I talk about this and how he like coached my little league team because no other dad would. So he stepped up, even though like it was going to be way harder for him. Like he didn't have a job in town. He like was traveling all over, but he would still figure out how to like, get to every single game 2 nights a week just to coach my baseball team. But I got to bat first because my dad was the coach, which is pretty slick. And then, a couple years went by and started on a new level of team. And there was a coach, and it was actually my uncle, because my uncles are all huge baseball guys. But anyway, so then my dad didn't have to coach anymore. And I went from being the batting first to batting last in like one season switch, but the moral of the story is, because like even though he wasn't coaching anymore, he still came to the games. Like he was still at the games no matter what. But the moral of the story for me there that I learned from that I learned from my own dad that I'm trying to apply in my own life, and then I put in the book, is that it doesn't matter if your kid bats first or last. What matters is that you're at the game.
Amen to that, man. It's funny. I've recorded almost 1,000 episodes of Dad Edge. And so I've had many, many conversations with amazing people. And one thing that I can tell you, there's that beautiful theme that you just hit on. And that is, when I looked out to the stands, did I see my dad? Right. Or was he there? Right. And they also were well aware of how many that he missed, right, or wasn't there in some way, shape, or form. But it's
crazy what kind of an impact that has.
Yeah.
You see your own kid's face lights up when you go to the concert, and there's that viral video of that little kid when he sees his parents. So adorable, but like just pulls at you as a father of like, oh crap, like, because like it's this time when your kids start to get into school and stuff that your life is no longer like it, where it really becomes clear that your life is no longer your life.
Yep.
That you are now a spectator in somebody else's life, but you have a very important part in that, just like, I don't get to play softball anymore. Now I have to go to all of their little things, right. And it's like defeating, like as a human, you're like, oh man, like I still want to be able to do cool stuff, but when you see their faces light up, you're like, okay, no, I'm where I need to be.
I love that, man. That is a beautiful perspective. And you're right, dude, especially those videos you're talking about, those do pull on your heartstrings, because you're like, man, Dad I interviewed Meg Meeker, and I'm sure you know who Meg Meeker is. She wrote Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. And yeah. She always said, if you really want to solve a lot of the world's problems, put an intentional father on every corner of every street in America. That's what will make the biggest. And we saw that in Louisiana. when at that school. I'm not sure if you remember this. It's several
I think
months
I
ago.
remember that story. Yeah.
Yeah, there was tremendous violence in this high school down in Louisiana. And instead of the school like hiring more security guards, which I think they couldn't afford or something like that, 7 dads just stepped up and decided to basically kind of patrol the hallways during classes and when people switched out their classes and stuff like that. And all of the violence went to nothing. Wow. And it was just because these guys were there. Right. And they were just present. And I think they even had shirts on that said "Dad's on duty," and all that violence in the way. But it's amazing that the presence of an on point father. What is your dad today? What does he think of Dude Dad?
I mean, I think he's super proud of it. He's told me that several times. My dad's a cool guy in that, like, you can get him to open up, but he's a boomer. So like, that's not how he's wired, but we got to, when we were filming the TV show, the second season of our TV show, Super Dad, which, just for those that don't know, I have a show on Magnolia Network where basically I come alongside another dad and help him build a really cool backyard project for his kids. So after the first season and me helping all these dads build cool stuff for their kids, the question became, when is Taylor going to build something for his own kids? And that question was very much coming from my own kids as well. So second season, we got to do that on the last episode. But, instead of me helping another dad, my dad came to help me. So, but if you watch the show, most of the show is about dads talking about what it's like to be a dad in 2022. So then I got to have those conversations with my own father, which was really, just eye-opening because, my dad's always been there, but like, there's just things that we've never talked about because he's not the type of guy that's just gonna be like, hey, let me tell you how I feel, So, but in that episode, he said a lot of things that were really eye-opening to like, not only my childhood, but everything else. But yeah, no, he's super proud of what I've done. And it's the chapters in my book where I talk about my dad that I get most emotional about. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just because like it takes me back to that adolescence when I was so impressionable. But for sure, like there's a couple different stories about my dad and a couple about my mom, and every single one of those, they're the ones that like get me like emotional when I read the book.
Can you share one of your favorites? I'd love to hear one of your favorite ones. I
already told you the baseball one.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the one that my mom, one about my mom. So my mom, this is actually the final chapter of the book and the object for that week. Because the book basically takes you through pregnancy 1 week at a time and compares your unborn child to things that men would know, like a 10 millimeter socket or a baseball or a 4-pound brisket, things that men would know. Yeah. So then each of those objects sort of launches into a chapter where I, talk about my own childhood or something I've learned during fatherhood. The object is sort of a launching point into a story that has like, a life lesson that I learned that I, tell to the reader. So week 40 is a toolbox. And it basically, the metaphor is like, as a dad, you're going to have a toolbox of lots of different, things that you're going to have in your toolbox in terms of like how to parent. Right. And like you can't use a hammer to fix the sink because it just doesn't work. Right. Like every kid is different. Every kid requires different tools to be able to like speak to them and teach them and mold them as a human. Right. Like not every like project takes the same tools. That's sort of the metaphor. So the story is like about my mom. I was this little kid. I must've been like maybe 9 or something. And I was just having one of those really bad mornings, where I just woke up and I was mad at the world. Nothing was going right. I was just pissy and late. I missed the bus. So when I miss the bus, that means mom has to now drive me 7 miles to town to get me to school. So I'm late for school. Mom's got to drive me to town. We're driving into town and I'm just sitting in the passenger seat, just grumpy, and we finally get into town and we pass the corner that takes us to the school. And I'm like, whoa, where are we going? Is she going to throw me in a lake? What's happening right now? And she doesn't say anything. This is very my mom to do. Like, she just won't tell you what's going on and just do it. Right. So she takes me to our local donut shop and we go inside and she gets me a donut and a chocolate milk. And we sit there together and have a donut and chocolate milk, all while the bell is rang, school has started. And I'm sitting here eating donuts, and, that was like, my mom could have very well used the hammer on me that day, but instead she used the level, and she helped level me out and get me back to where I needed to be able to continue on and have a good day and not, stay in that funk forever. She could tell that something was off with me. And instead of like just getting mad at me, which, she's done in the past, she tried a different approach and it changed my whole day. And it gave me a new appreciation for her and for, because immediately after, she takes you to the donut shop, you immediately feel guilt. I learned a lesson immediately. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, I deserve this donut. Like, I knew I didn't deserve that donut, but my mom was like, decided to practice grace on me that day and used a different tool from the toolbox. And, it not only like shaped that day, but it, it's had a lasting impact on my entire life of like what grace means and what it means to like, practice grace. I don't know.
That is an incredible story. And that's an interesting one as well, because how old were you?
I must have been like 9. I don't know. That's a guess.
No. So definitely at that age where you definitely understand what's going on and you definitely are probably anticipating one of the worst, right? Now I'm really in trouble.
Yeah. I was at that point of like self-sabotaging,
I mean, it sounds like what she really did was this really incredible pattern interrupt.
Yeah.
Instead of adding gasoline to the fire and yelling and screaming at you, which was probably justifiable to some degree, or just get out of the car, cheer up, have a better day, whatever. She decided to do something just a little bit different that would interrupt that pattern. And that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. I'll share this one quick thing. My son, my 14-year-old, unfortunately, got caught doing something I don't think, and granted, I probably am not objective, but I don't think he's ever done this. He got caught copying somebody else's work. And my son has never had a problem with school. Like my 14-year-old, he's always gotten good grades. But I pulled him out of school for 3 days because we had a big event over the weekend that we did together. And so he was out of school for 3 days. And he had a lot of missing assignments and he felt the pressure of like, oh my God, I have all this stuff to do and it's due by this day. And I don't know how I'm gonna get it all done. And one of his buddies let him use his Chromebook to answer, I guess, one of the questions on one of the assignments. And it just so happened, a teacher walked by and caught him.
Yeah.
And he came up to me yesterday in tears and I didn't know any of this. And he just full on told me everything that happened. He took 100% responsibility, owned every single bit of it, was crying and thought that he was going to be punished. And I did none of that. Instead, I honored him for his courage and I honored him for taking, because in his message, even when the teacher was blaming the kid, he's like, don't blame him. It wasn't his fault. I told him to do it. Like I was desperate to get this done. And I told him to do it. Don't punish him, punish me. And I told my son, I'm not going to punish you. And he's like, what? I was like, I'm not going to punish you. I was like, you feel bad enough. He has detention today as we speak for an hour after school. And I was like, there's a lot of beauty in what you just told me and what you did. And I told him everything. And I said, you owned it. You didn't blame. You didn't, it was this fault and that fault and this reason and that reason. And he allowed me to, he didn't have to. There was none of that. Full ownership. And I was like, you know what? Lesson learned. Are you ever going to do this again? He's like, no. I was like, I believe you. And we left it at that. And that was very unexpected for him because he thought I was going to lay down the hammer, and I could have, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't, because I was like, man, there's some real beauty in here that it's already done. The lesson's already learned. I don't need to do anymore. In fact, if anything, I want him to repeat what he just did. Right. Yeah.
I don't think he even understands just how, responsible he just was. Yeah. Like as an adult, I struggle to not give excuses when I screw something up, it's ingrained in our blood to be like, well, yeah, I'm late for the meeting, but this is why,
right.
Rather than just being like, I screwed up. I should not have done that. I should have been here on time, and I wasn't, or whatever it is,
Yeah. Yeah. It's good. And it sounds like your mom really did the same, which was awesome. I want to segue into your book. I love the way it's so creative, man. The way you have the book split up, and the different sizes, the baseball and the brisket. I did see your trailer video of the brisket part, and you're like, it's like immediately got distracted by this beautiful brisket. You're like, wait, what am I talking about? But I would love for you to maybe just share some more detail about the book and why you wrote it.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah. I started writing it when Heidi was pregnant with our second child, Juno. So this would have been 5 years ago. I started writing it, and then things were just too busy. And I also had no idea how to get a book published, so I kind of put it on the back burner, and I was like, you know what, let's just wait and see if there's a better time to do this. And then sure enough, a couple of years ago now, I got approached by a literary agency who wanted to rep me. I pitched them the book. They loved it. We pitched it to a couple of different publishers, and then boom, got a publishing deal and launched into making this thing. But all that to say, I wrote some of it when we were pregnant with Juno, and then the rest of it, we started to just piece together based on my old videos, based on every ounce of thoughtful parenting advice I've put into this, and then it's just a matter of finding a way to craft it. So originally it was just going to be a coffee table book that showed, on one page, it would show an image that says your baby is the size of a Cheerio this week. And then on the next page, it would have some information. And now it's blown way past that. And, it still has the, this week, your baby is the size of a Cheerio. And then it uses Cheerio to launch off into some sort of teachable lesson. So I think the Cheerio analogy is, basically how we go through parenthood, and Cheerios are everywhere. Right. And you're feeding your baby Cheerios because you're busy and you're late for the meeting and you're just getting through the day. You throw some down on the thing and you're just getting through the day. A few years later, you're pouring, you're taking the kids on errands with you, and you hand some Cheerios in one of those little cups with the stopper on it so they don't spill everywhere, and you're handling that back to your toddler, and you're using Cheerios because they're easy and you're just getting through your day. And then you're giving your kids Cheerios in a bowl with milk, and they spill it everywhere, but Cheerios easy. You're just getting through your day. It goes on and on and on until now they're pouring their own Cheerios. You didn't even see them do it. They ate, they're out the door. You didn't even see them that morning because you're just getting through your day. And then years down the road, you and your wife are in your house by yourself, eating Cheerios because your cholesterol's too high and your kids are no longer there, but you're just getting through your day. The Cheerios are those little moments all throughout parenthood that we take for granted, right? That we don't stop to think about like, hey, I'm having breakfast with my kid today. Let me like soak in this moment, right? Because you're too busy just getting through your day. But before you know it, you don't get those moments anymore and they're gone, you know? So the Cheerio is really a representation of like those little things that happen all throughout our, you know, our experience as dads and moms that, you know, that we need to try to, you know, be in the moment and be present with before they're gone, you know? They're just mundane little moments, but someday they're going to mean a lot more to you when you look back and try to remember them, you know?
Yeah. Gosh, man, what a beautiful analogy. You're bringing me back to all these nostalgic moments when my kids were little and Cheerios were the thing. We also goldfish, right? Goldfish. I think it's like the same. It's like, sometimes I wonder if our minivan is just a transporter of goldfish that have been there for like 7 years, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. There could be like a biography written about a goldfish who spent 7 years in the back of a Honda Odyssey.
Could be a next Doodad video right there. Man, I love that because you're right. You know, we just, so now that I have a 16-year-old, I'm taking him to go get his driver's license here soon. And I'm sitting here thinking, I remember, I'm teaching him how to drive. And I was like, bro, I remember teaching you how to walk.
Yeah.
And I remember it like it was 2 days ago. And when I always tell him, I was like, I remember getting so annoyed when people would tell me, oh, it flies by. You better just embrace everything you possibly can. I'm like, oh my God, whatever. Like it won't. And then it does. And in fact, it flies by so fast that I'm actually shocked at how I'm realizing now in my 40s, like how short this time actually is with our kids. There was another podcast guest I had on, and there's actually a statistic that 80% of your one-on-one time with your kids is gone by the time they're 12.
Wow.
And I asked him to explain that one. I was like, really? I was like, explain that. He's like, well, think about it. He's like, you know, preteen and teen, you know, now they're kind of like hanging out with their friends more. So now you're fighting for time between their friends, which are way more important than you at that age. And then especially when they, you know, get into high school, you know, now they're doing activities and sports and their practices, and you see them on the weekends, and then they start driving, and then you really don't see them. And then they're off to college. And I'm like, whoa,
yeah,
that's crazy, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you say it like that, like I'm halfway through that with my oldest, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's like, it's such a like weird internal battle, because in the moment you're like, oh my God, I want some peace and quiet. Go play in the other room, you know? And then when you look back on it, you're like, I miss that, you know? I like, you know, whenever I see pictures of Juno when she was 1 and she was this tiny little like awkward toddler with a huge belly, I'm like, oh my God, I miss that. You know, where'd that go? Now she's this lanky 4-year-old, but yeah.
And in like 2 minutes, she'll be 8, right? Which is crazy. So
yeah.
You know, I have one more question before we end. And that is, I've always wanted to know this about you. And this is, I would say, maybe a personal question, but I think it'll serve the audience as well. Is that I love watching you do what you do.
Thank you.
I do. Every time you launch a new video, I get really excited. I watch it. It brings a smile to my face. It brings joy to me. And the other really cool thing is that I always look at it through the lens of things I've experienced along with you as you're adding comedy to it. And it makes me stop and think, to be honest. Like it makes me laugh, but it also makes me super reflective. And like the one video that comes to mind, because I swear to God, man, I do it every day. It's the one where you and your wife are acting like your kids and like brushing your teeth, and you spit like on the mirror and stuff like that, the toothpaste.
Yeah.
And so like as I watched that video and I was laughing, and like the next time I'm cleaning up toothpaste, I'm thinking of you guys doing that stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, this is actually as annoying as this is, it's quite hysterical. Right.
Yeah.
And there's going to come a day where I'm not cleaning this stuff off the mirror, and I'm going to wish that I was. So it makes me like really reflective a lot of times of like the beauty that's in the chaos that I experienced with raising my 4 boys. But the question I have for you is, what is it that you hope to just share and pass on to other just dads out there, man, who are just like, wow, this is harder than I thought it was going to be. I want to enjoy it. I do struggle with some patience. I struggle with some work-life balance. And I want to enjoy this. And then there's you, who's leading the charge as an influencer with adding just some humor and some lightheartedness to this. But what is it, if we were to peel back the curtain and say, what is it that you're really trying to do? What is that for you?
I mean, for us, it's about relating to people. It's about, like everything comes from a place of our experiences, but we're really, trying to hold up a mirror to be like, is this you? Is this what's going on with you? Like, you're normal. You're not, it's okay to feel the way you feel. Other people feel that way too. You're normal, so I think it's really like trying to connect with people in a way that validates them and the thoughts that they're having and everything. But also like the other part of it is like, trying to, try to encourage people to embrace the chaos, that like, it's not easy. It's not always fun, but you might as well enjoy it, like you might as well make the most of it and have as much fun you can with it, because it's not going to be there forever. It's just not, and I have to remind myself that constantly too, of like when I'm having a hard time or I'm way too busy or whatever, and my kids want to play Tickle Monster and I'm like already dead tired. I'm like, well, like this is the moment that's going to make me as a dad to them, is like, it's not going to be that I worked extra hard so that we got the bigger house. They're not going to give a shit about that. What they're going to care about, what they're going to remember, is that I play Tickle Monster with them every single night, because also like, I doubt they're going to want to play Tickle Monster when they're 14, So like that day will come to an end.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to be like, come on. And they're going to just be like, Dad, don't touch me. Get away.
Yeah. Oh my God, dude. That, I did a podcast interview with a guy who said he remembers vividly the last time his son reached up and grabbed his hand.
Wow.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's like a really powerful thing.
Yeah.
Like, when your kids are little, you're like, oh, like we hold our hand crossing the street and blah, 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 hold our hand crossing the parking lot. He's like, I remember like literally we were walking into a grocery store and he reached up and he grabbed my hand, and there was something that clicked for me there, being like, I wonder if this is the last time he's going to do this. And sure enough, it was. And you're exactly right. I can tell you, man, I can validate absolutely 100% what you just said. And the funny thing is I go about parenting a little bit differently. We call our kids, the 14 and 16-year-old, we call them the bigs. The 8 and 6-year-old, we call them the littles. So it's the bigs and the littles. And what I can tell you is the way I go about parenting and enjoying my second ones are a little bit different than my first, because to be honest, like I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
With the first 2. And then the second 2, I'm like, oh, now I know. And I know that all these moments that I'm taking for granted, they're like fleeting moments, and they could end at any moment, right? Like with a snap of a finger. So I think that's beautiful that you said that, is really embracing some of those things that, yeah, when you're exhausted, you're maxed out. I'm going to be the Tickle Monster guy, right? Because kids, they spell LOVETIME, right? And you're right. They don't care about the new, bigger house, but they do care if you played with them. They do care if you're, there with them and enjoying them and enjoying that journey, man. I have loved this conversation, my man. I'm so happy for you that this book is coming out. I want to make sure that every single guy who listens to this show can find you, your videos, your resources, and your book. So what's the best place they can do that?
They should just search Dude Dad and they'll find it. Whatever platform you're on, search Dude Dad. The book comes out May 10th. When's this episode comes out? It'll probably be out already, right?
It'll be out. Yeah, this is the
okay.
May
the book is The book is available everywhere they sell books. There's an audiobook version too, which I think is very important to mention because a lot of guys don't like to read. I'm one of those guys. I like to listen to audiobooks because I can do it while I'm driving or whatever. But whether your wife is pregnant or you just have new kids, like I don't know. I think I poured myself into it. I'm very proud of it. I think there's a lot of it's funny, but there's a lot of like good nuggets in there that I think will challenge dads and get them thinking and push them to embrace fatherhood as the most epic journey of their life.
I couldn't agree more, man. And I'm so glad you made an audio version of it because you're right. Because a lot of our guys are not readers. Are you the one that reads the book?
Yes. Yeah. I do the audiobook reading, which was hard. You don't realize like, even when you wrote the words, just reading them out loud, like I did every sentence 2 to 3 times to get through it. Cause and luckily you have like a director sitting there with you listening to go like, that's the wrong word. Do it again. Like you meant intention. Oh, got it. All right.
Yeah, man. I was just a real quick side note. I was interviewing Chris Gardner, the author of The Pursuit of Happiness. And
wow, okay.
He read his own book and he said he was with one of those directors and she kept correcting him. And at first he was like, man, you are so picky. Like it was driving him crazy.
Yeah.
And he's like, but Larry, man, I was so happy that she did because otherwise I'd be saying all these words wrong and then it'd be out there for the world permanently. He's like, so it was great that she was actually there to correct me. But yeah, in the moment, it kind of drives you crazy. But well, Taylor, man, we're going to have all the links in the show notes for everybody to connect with you, your book and everything. Guys, listen, if you want to, obviously, Taylor, we have a special place in our heart for you, man. And I think a lot of it is because you are so authentically freaking real, man. And you are so like, you don't do this for like the glam and everything. Like you do it because you love it. And I got to tell you that comes across in everything that you do. And it's awesome to see it. And there's a lot of influencers out there, and there's a lot of personalities out there when it comes to influencers, but I love yours the most. And I honestly mean that.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Larry.
You bet. All right, guys. So here's the deal. Go over to thedadedge.com/Friday53 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/Friday53. Taylor, thank you so much for coming on, man. This was so cool.
It was a lot of fun, Larry. Thanks for having me. We should do this again sometime.
We absolutely will. Absolutely will. Gentlemen, go out, live legendary. Take care.